All right. Yay. Okay. So this week, not a whole lot of new stuff. It's DHCP again. Except we're doing it on Linux this time. Ooh. So, in this lab, you're going to turn off DHCP and pfSense. Do not forget that line. That'll trip you up every time. And you're going to replace it with DHCP on Ubuntu 18.04. So you'll notice that these labs tend to be a little more involved than the Windows labs. Because the Windows labs, you can probably do a lot of those blindly. But the Linux labs, not so much. So, here's what we got. The official guide. This is Ubuntu's documentation. Nothing better than going to the source. So to install the server, I mean, this is way more information that you need. You've already installed the server before, but just in case you need a refresher or something like that, this is here. And this is the actual real documentation for that. So if you need help installing it, there it is. If you need help installing Linux Mint, there's that. That is the official Linux Mint, whatever. So grab your ISOs there. Easy peasy. Now comes the entire fun stuff. So install Ubuntu 18 using the entire disk. Don't worry about it. I mean, just set up the partition or the disk that big and let Ubuntu take over the whole thing. And then show that to me with lsblk. Then hostname. We actually just covered hostname CTL. Hostname CTL on in the Linux class this week, yesterday. So this is something that we didn't cover too much because systemd wasn't covered as in depth as it is now on the previous test. So yeah, so if you need to change your host name, yeah, kind of gave you the answer on that one. So change your host name, make it something not super duper generic. Because later on you're going to be adding that to DNS. You're going to have your own DNS mapping. It is super duper important that you have something that is easy to type but is descriptive as well. So whatever you want to name it, it's fine. Just keep that in mind for now until the end of the semester. Then statically assign the second reserved IP address in the Linux network. Right? So remember, at the very beginning, we reserved the first 5 IP addresses for stuff. The second IP address in that range that you reserved is what you're going to assign to Ubuntu. Now, when you're installing Ubuntu, you can do this. You can automatically just set it up right there during installation so you don't have to go and mess around with NetPlan. NetPlan, however, is the new way to control IP addresses on Ubuntu and I won't go into that too much. Just Ubuntu. So if you want to change your IP address after the fact, you fat-fingered it and typoed it the first time around or whatever, you just need to go in and change something. You can do that through NetPlan. That'll exist in the Etsy NetPlan directory. Yeah. If for some reason you're having trouble, just Google NetPlan Ubuntu static IP, right? Bingo bango, one of these will have the information that you need. Linux Config is usually a pretty good site. It's not toward anybody, Anthony. Every single person that's come through this entire lab has forgotten to put the IP address during the installation, so that's more to everybody. Anyway, gives you the idea, tells you where it's at. It used to be there, now it's here. You need to deal with the file that exists in that directory. It'll look like that. You'll want to make it look like that. And then you type in that, and everything is golden, right? If for some reason it tells you that it's not working, you run that. And then it tells you exactly why it's not working, right? So it is pretty simple. Get through that process if you forget. Only if you forget. Otherwise, don't bother. You don't need to deal with that. If the IP address is already set correctly, then you don't have to deal with that. Configure your time zone. We are U.S. or America, Chicago. I know we are not in Chicago, but they observe the same daylight savings times as we do, and there is no America, Dallas, or anything. So, Chicago it is. Use time date CTL. You will need to -- help with time date CTL to figure out exactly how to do this. I'm giving you the very first step, but you got to take it the rest of the way. Everything in Linux has a help page or a man page that you can use to figure out what the heck is going on.
What was the TLDR?
You can probably also use TLDR to figure that out, but make sure you install it. Sudo apt install TLDR, and then you can, instead of typing man and then time date CTL, you'll do TLDR and then time date CTL. Speaking of installing packages, install isc-dhcp-server. This is the equivalent of going into add roles and then checking the DHCP server, next in Windows. This is the equivalent of that. When you install it, it enables itself. That is the vendor default. So it is done that way. So you'll need to figure out where this file is. It is your job to figure these things out. This is the file. If it's not named this, you're in the wrong file. It has to be named exactly that. But the directory path is your responsibility to figure out. So, in that file, there is an option domain name and option domain name servers at the top. Comment those out. Those are global settings. And when you have multiple subnets, we're not going to do that, but when you have multiple subnets, you may or may not want global settings. So think about it like this. If you want to give, you've got 4 separate subnets, maybe 4 different VLANs, and you've got a DHCP server for each. If you want the DNS server to be the same for all 4 of those subnets, you can create a global option domain name servers, and that will apply the same DNS server to every single machine on any of those subnets. You put that up top. If for some reason you have a DNS server per VLAN or per LAN, then you're not going to want that global option because it will override what's in each individual subnet. So the way that all this works is in this file, you create what is essentially your Windows scope. So you'll go all the way down to the bottom of the file, and there are examples. I don't care if you edit the example or if you create a whole new one based off of the example. Does not matter to me. However you want to do it, getting there. However you want to do it, will be fine. So anyway, down at the bottom, use the example. Doesn't matter to me.
What do you mean by comment out?
How do you deal with a comment in Linux? How do you make something a comment? The hash at the beginning of the line. Yeah. And so if you're using Nano or VI or something like that to look at that configuration file, when you put a hash in front of it, it'll change colors. That's how you know it's commented out. And there are tons of comments in that file, so you'll know what it's going to look like before you even try to comment anything out.
Is hashtag the only delimiter that you can use?
For comments? Not hyphen. I'm going to say yeah. But I'm not there could definitely be something else that you could use, but it's certainly not in common usage. So anyway, in that same file, as you go down and look at their example, I need you to create a new subnet declaration. These are the things that I need you to configure in that subnet declaration. So at the beginning of it, you're going to say subnet, and you're going to define the network itself, 192.168.1.0, and then it's subnet mask, and then you do a little cool curly bracket, hit enter, and then you can start defining what that scope in Windows, if you want to use that terminology, or subnet declaration is actually going to provide to any machine that's getting a DHCP address from your server. So I need you to set default lease time to 1 day. Guess what? Linux doesn't do hours or days. It does seconds. Yay, math. So, set your max lease time to 1 day. So, a client can typically request longer lease times than default lease time, so you just want to block that off and say, nope, 1 day. It's just 1 day. Set the router option. What option is that? What would you set that to? Don't give me an IP address, but give me like the device. pfSense. Which interface? Because there's 3 on pfSense. The Linux interface. Yep, the Linux LAN interface. That is the deal. Dang, Pete's been over here Pete's been over here answering every single question I've asked, man. It's good stuff. Anyway, and then set the domain name servers option. The only way this option works is if you commented out the global option up at the top of the file. You know, the thing I told you to do. Make sure you do it. Otherwise, you're going to wonder, why am I getting the wrong DNS server? I went into my subnet declaration and I changed it and I changed it and I changed it and I changed it and it still won't ever change. The global option is overriding you. You did not comment it out. So if you're having troubles with it, just go verify that you have commented out the global option domain name servers. Otherwise, you'll have fun. Then, add your Linux Mint VM to the network and request a DHCP address. How do you request a DHCP address? What do you mean just set it? This is one of those trick questions. It's not a trick question.
It's not.
But
You don't set it statically.
yeah, you just
Set it as DHCP.
you just plug it in. Yeah, systemctl will definitely help with changing of the DHCP stuff. You want to restart the service in Linux. Anytime you make a change to the service itself or the daemon, you have to restart it. And Pete is exactly right. System control, restart the thing, and then the new settings will have applied. Yes. And then, yeah, a reboot will also work. But, I mean, it's a server. So they're not meant to be rebooted, not unless you're doing patching or something like that. So system control is the better way to deal with that. So in the Linux VM, in the Linux Mint VM, once you get an IP address or you suspect that you've gotten an IP address, type in that command, nmcli dev show. I like ifconfig, don't get me wrong. I like IPA, a lot less than ifconfig, but you can colorize it, which is nice. But neither of those options give you the router information. And neither of those options give you DNS information. Not that you couldn't get them, because in etcresolve.conf, your DNS information exists. You can also check routing with It's route-a. You can see all that information, right? But it's just easier if there's one command to see it all, right? So I'm giving you the easy way out. Otherwise, it would be IP-A to give you the IP addressing and subnet masking information, route-a to give you the router that you're using in your machine, and checking the contents of etcresolve.conf to see what your DNS servers, your name servers are set to. So anyway, you can do it either way, but an MCLI dev show should be part of your screenshot. Then once you have confirmed in Linux Mint that you have an IP address and you are positive that it's coming from the Ubuntu server and not pfSense, because obviously you went into pfSense and turned off DHCP server, right? Like you totally did that. Don't forget. Don't forget to do that. So if you're getting an IP address, then it must be coming from the Ubuntu server, and the way that you check that is on the Ubuntu server. Go look at that file. Go look on the inside of it. What does it say? Does it have information that looks like it resembles the Linux Mint VM information? Because if it does, you've won the game. If it doesn't, you got some tinkering to do. If you're getting an IP address and it doesn't show up in dhcpd.leases right here, you forgot to turn off pfSense's DHCP server. After that, there's no telling what kind of weird stuff you got yourself into. So if you have troubles outside of the things that I've mentioned, which are pretty common, then you'll have to get with me. We'll have to go in and figure out what the heck is going on. One of the things that I didn't mention. What's that? That's probably our internet connection here, Pete. The video will be fine, so check that out here in just a minute. It's not going to be a very long video, so sorry about that. But the last thing that I'll tell you, and I'll type in the chat, Pete, but since you've already got it, I think you're good. But Anthony, this might help you out. No. It'll be journal CTL-XE. So if for some reason you restart the service and it's like failed, won't restart the service, missing semicolon on line 12 or whatever, type in journal CTL-XE just like that in the command line, and it will give you the information that you may have missed. So when you restart a service, it doesn't always give you all the stuff. It gives you like the last 10 lines, and that might not be enough to give you the full answer. So journalctl.exe will start you at the bottom of the journal, so the most recent stuff, and journal is just a fancy name for log, and just scroll up. And you will, if it's not working, you'll see red somewhere. Focus on that. Work on that. And it will literally tell you, line 14. So look at line 13, look at line 14, look at line 15. You forgot something. Curly bracket, a semicolon, a space, a tab, something. You forgot something, so check on that. Yeah, Pete. But that's it. That's it. So once you get all that taken care of, gather up all those screenshots. Just follow along down here. Pretty much every line has a screenshot. Pretty much. Yeah. Anyway, so the one that I don't have is this very first one, VM setting. Just show me how you got it set up. Those are easy points. Do not lose those 10 points. If for some reason the entire lab blows up, you can at least get a 10. Anyhow, that's it, guys. Let me see. This might help for some reason if you're having issues. There it is. Help.ubuntu.com. This one. This one is canonical in both senses of the word. Canonical meaning this is like the encyclopedia for Ubuntu, so it is official. And canonical because that is the company that Ubuntu is owned by. So, look at that, double entendre. You're welcome. You're welcome. Eat that for lunch. Just kidding. Anyway, just some examples of what that subnet declaration looks like, but it'll be in that dhcpt.conf. Oh no, the answer to the question. There it was. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. Later today, Anthony, later today. I'll get to it as soon as I can, but that'll be about it.